Previously on Kawaii-Fi Quest.
Point me in the direction of your darkest god.
Welcome to Wormwood's Wares, guys, where everything is very cool and very legal. Feel free to browse my... How did you get in that suit of armor so quickly?
I get dressed very quickly. I was shy as a child. Nobody noticed me until I put on the mask, helmet.
Okay, Kenny, why does your voice sound like that?
Oh, I think it is the helmet. 1 second.
Oh yeah, definitely the helmet.
Right, well, I'm going to try on some armor.
Shopkeep, I want a dragon.
No worries, mate. What's your budget?
About this much.
Well, I do have this fine specimen over here. Just came in yesterday. Beautiful plumage, mate. Beautiful.
Are you sure that's not a pigeon?
Wait, what? No. You see, before their flames develop, they need plumage to keep warm. This is a Targassian silverback, one of the finest dragons you can get.
It's cooing.
Oh, this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it's what dragons do when they're pining for the fjords, mate.
Ah, okay.
Pining for the fjords? Are you serious?
No, yeah, legend says if you return a Targassian silverback
Pigeon?
to its home on the fjords, it'll bestow upon you a bone.
A quest? I'll take it. Kyle, hurry up in there. We have a quest.
I need a minute. Everything I try on turns into a bikini.
That's because you're in the ladies' change room, mate.
Oh, fantasy
yes,
armor.
yes, fantasy female armor.
Right.
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
お兄ちゃん
Configure the language logic interface for Japanese.
Kawaii-Fi.
Konnichiwa and welcome to Kawaii-Fi Radio, the podcast where we look into the world of anime and manga and all things in between. I'm your host Kyle, and joining me are my co-hosts Coco and Henny. How you going, guys?
Yeah, doing pretty good.
Yeah. So, I think there's someone here in particular wants to talk about something that's a little bit,
Vikings!
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
No, I'm going to sound really bad if I repeat that. I feel like I managed it. I don't know if I managed it the once. Anyway,
You're ready for Viking metal,
yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, because I've been watching a show on Netflix lately called Norseman, and
That's a comedy,
yeah,
spoof on Viking culture, I think.
Yes, it is. And now, because I'm watching Vinland Saga, I'm taking a lot of it seriously, but there's also a lot that's coming in that's causing me to not take it seriously. Though it is epic. Like, if you don't watch Norseman, you'll probably find it completely epic and compelling.
Oh, yeah.
Don't watch Norseman before you watch anything Vikings sort of related that's serious.
Because whenever they're on a boat, you'll be going, I don't feel the communication on this boat is very good. I feel like a lot of us do not know where you're taking us.
Yeah.
Actually, on a similar note, I was watching the series aptly named Vikings. It's Game of Thrones-esque in its drama and cinematic glory. It takes itself very, very seriously. So then I watched Vinland Saga right after that, and I'm like, yeah, this all checks out.
Yeah, it's like, this
Awesome.
seems legit.
So you haven't had it ruined for you?
No.
Yeah,
I
ruined
watched
it.
a little bit of Norseman a while ago, but then I saw Vikings right afterwards, and I think that was ruined for me because of Norseman.
It's kind of like that sort of thing where if you watch Scary Movie and then watch I Know What You Did Last Summer or Scream,
You just sat there going, don't go into that room.
it's just funny and all, It's not ruined. Maybe it's just embellished. Anyway, Vinland Saga is really good. We are seeing a decent chunk of time pass in the episodes that we've watched. Basic premise being that a former, what was he? He was part of the Jomsvikings. Thors,
he was
his
like
name
the
is.
captain of it.
Like
Yeah.
the Vikings Viking. These guys are the
Yeah.
guys you send in when all else fails.
Yeah, and this guy, Thors, was their troll. He was like an epic warrior. Then after he named his firstborn child, he started to not enjoy killing, as you probably should not enjoy killing. Anyway, not judging. So he decides to fake his death And
He starts a new life.
Yeah, he goes to settle somewhere in Iceland, starts a new life.
Has a lovely son.
Has a
And daughter. The daughter's
Yeah.
very popular.
Yeah, the daughter is
So popular.
is metal, seriously.
She is.
So yeah, and all is well until one day he's tracked down by
The Yoms Vikings.
Yeah, because they're now going to go off and invade England. Properly.
Is it England or
It's
is it
England.
the US?
No, it's England.
Oh,
So Vinland itself is the land to the west of Iceland, and it's talking about going past Greenland to Canada, essentially. Which
'cause
is
around Newfoundland
Yeah.
that they landed.
Discovered by Leif Erikson, who features as one of the characters in the show, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Actually, Kenny was the one who pointed it out. He's like, "Oh, that's Leif Erikson."
I liked Vikings when they were cool. They're like
wow,
They are
pretentious
still
much.
cool. It's okay, Vikings. You're cool.
they're
You're still cool. It's
their
okay.
whole
They're
in
ice
vogue
cold.
thing. It's like, oh,
Oh, far out.
they are sort of an in vogue thing.
They
They're
are.
in fashion, like Vikings were last decade, and like Angels were the decade prior.
But like
Yeah.
things with fashion, they'll always recycle and come straight back unless they're like puffball skirts. I don't think they're coming back.
No, I don't think they're
or
coming back.
massive
What a
shoulder
segue.
pads.
Now, I want to talk about something equally as metal,
Ooh.
equally as bloody, equally as terrifying.
Something visceral.
Yes.
Something awful.
Yes.
Something on par with Vinland Saga, Attack on Titan,
Absolutely.
Berserk.
Absolutely, all of those things. A man looking after his young daughter.
Wait, what?
She is a demon, but
Yeah, but what?
Yes, he looks after a daughter. He dotes on her and loves her kindly.
Okay.
She makes shepherd's pie in where he lives.
This is if it's for my daughter, I'd even defeat a demon lord, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I've been
Yeah.
watching the heck out of it, and it is one of the more wholesome things I've seen since Eurocamp.
it is
Oh, wow.
precious. Hey, she
It's-
is so cute.
It's adorable. It's
I mean, I haven't. I'm not up to date on it. I've seen a fair chunk of it, but it's just it averts expectations quite a few times.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, it's like you expect this is going to be sort of an isekai thing, except now he's dragging around a little girl, similar to Do You Love Your Mother? How he's dragging around- Meh. Less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
But it's because he has to still go adventuring and earning a living because that is
Yeah.
his stock and trade.
And he's actually a serious adventure. He's kind of feared, and revered. Isn't he?
And you wouldn't be able to tell that when he's at home with his little girl
No.
because he's just so like, squee, I love my little girl so much.
Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
smile brings me joy and all that kind of stuff. But then when you see him out in battle,
Yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
cleaving down waves of demons with his sword.
Which is how they met, isn't it? Because
Well, he was out adventuring and found her just alone. It's not like he went off and killed the dad or anything like
the
that.
dad
No.
had
Passed away.
Passed away. Yeah.
Sad.
Very, very, very sad. But then you get to see her making shepherd's pie and all of the so they're the
is
pub / inn that he lives at is in like the dodgy part of town.
Yeah, and it's full of like the hard adventurers who are like, talking about all the
Yep.
stuff that they do out on the job. And then this little girl comes around to serve them their shepherd's pie and it melts their hearts.
so
It's just like
carefully
what
too.
happened?
The way she puts it on the table, and she's just so like measured about it, and yeah. So
It's really telling because she gets lost. I think in like the second or third episode because she goes wandering around the city, and then you've got all these big badass adventurers looking for her, and the kids that
Yeah.
find her are trying to help bring her home are utterly terrified.
Of all these
Yeah.
adventurers, they're just like, hey, that little girl.
Thank you for saving her. She was so wonderful. We were so worried.
And can I say it's interesting hearing the name Chloe in an anime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's
It's a very European name. It's not something you would expect
Yeah.
from a. I mean, admittedly, we are talking about them setting it in the typical Germanic fantasy setting.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And that's like a staple in like the kind of fantasy anime is that there will be names like that coming over. But yeah.
so this isn't her name, obviously. It's
no,
just
it's
a
one
side
of the other
character.
characters. But
yeah.
the side character kids all have very Western names, and we're so used to hearing them like have
Like Misaka from Attack on Titan.
Yeah,
But
well-
at the same time, you've got Eren Yeager next to her.
yeah,
Yeah.
or Makoto.
Which is a badass name.
Yeah. And then what's the third kid from Attack on Titan?
Armin,
which definitely doesn't
Armin
sound.
Verbeer.
That sounds very German, doesn't it? Very Germanic.
Yeah, Scandinavian.
Anyway, this episode, on the note of Makoto, Makoto time. So this episode, we're looking at the visionary artist, director, and filmmaker behind some of the most memorable anime films in recent years. We're talking 5 centimeters a second, The Garden of Words, and Your Name. And they all have established themselves as strong, compelling works. And that's both in otaku communities and with casual moviegoers in Japan and around the world.
We are, of course, talking about Makoto Shinkai.
And with his new film, Weathering With You, ripping up records in Japanese cinemas, this episode we're looking at his history and his work. All this after the news.
Making headlines.
Really?
Sort of.
Anime news.
Shinjuku gets its Sherlock and Cabaneri films heading to Netflix. This is Kawaii-Fi Anime News. Upcoming time travel romance film Hello World will be receiving a trio of OVA specials set 10 years after the film ends. Titled Another World, the spin-off episodes will premiere on Hikari TV's streaming service on September 13, a week before the film opens in cinemas. The following episodes will air each week after the film opens. Hello World is set in Tokyo, in Kyoto in 2027 and focus on Naomi Kagata, a high school student who's visited by someone claiming to be him, but 10 years from the future. There's been no word on an international release yet, but we can watch the trailer on our Facebook page. Netflix live-action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop has announced its latest cast member, with Alina Satine cast in the role of Julia. Satine has starred in a number of TV shows, including Magic City, Revenge, Twin Peaks, The Gifted, and as the Asgardian Lorelei in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She joins an all-star cast fronted by John Cho as Spike, Mustafa Shakir as Jet, and Daniela Pineda as Faye Valentine. Netflix and Tomorrow Studios are producing the series, with the Bebop's original director, Shinichiro Watanabe, serving as a consultant on the project. Staying with the streaming giant, Netflix have announced the Cabaneri the Iron Fortress film, The Battle of Yunato, will be landing on the service on September 13. The film originally screened in Japanese theatres for 2 weeks in May and continues the story established in the 2016 animated series. The film is meant to serve as a midpoint in the franchise, according to the series website. Competitive volleyball series Haikyuu will have 2 new OVA episodes released later this year, with the 4th season airing in January 2020. The 2-part OVA project will cover the volleyball qualifiers for Tokyo, with 4 teams battling it out for a place in the Nationals. Based on the manga by Haruichi Furudate, the series has seen 4 films and 3 seasons released since it began in 2014. Upcoming detective anime Kabuki-cho Sherlock has unveiled an October premiere production date for Production IG's latest original series. Set in the Kabuki-cho district of Shinjuku Wards East, the story focuses on 7 shady individuals after a murder by Jack the Ripper, though whether the series is a serious take on the English detective is unclear. The series is being directed by Ai Yoshimura from My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu, with 91 Days and Erased writer Taku Kishimoto in charge of the script. Rejoining Sherlock in October are 2 series returning from earlier this year. We Never Learn Bokuben will be airing the 2nd season of its student harem comedy starting on October 5th. The show's first series aired in April this year. And Koto Club anime Kono Oto Tomare, The Sounds of Life, will also be airing its 2nd cour in October, having also aired in April this year. The series focuses on the lone member of the traditional Japanese string instrument, the koto, and his club, and his efforts to rebuild it. Heading to the bookshelves, and the Rising of the Shield hero is receiving a new spin-off manga focused on cooking. Publishing on Katakawa's Comic Walker website, the series appears to be releasing monthly, with the first chapter online now and is scheduled for September 21st for its next release. The manga adaptation of Bakemonogatari will resume publication on September 4th after going on a hiatus due in part to manga artist O Great falling ill. The series is published weekly and went on hiatus just after the series entered its final arc in July. And another Goblin Slayer side story manga is on the way, with Square Enix announcing the Goblin Slayer Gaiden 2 novels will be adapted for their Manga Up app. Square Enix has previously cancelled an adaptation of the novel by manga artist Takahashi Minakuchi in April due to various circumstances, after publishing only 3 chapters. And that's your anime news for the week ending August 25th, 2019.
I'm sorry, you said another Goblin Slayer manga?
Yes.
I mean, I'm aware of the main one because there's an anime about it, but how many...
this is the 3rd spin-off. So you've got Goblin Slayer Year 1, which is the prequel. but not so much of a prequel as it goes all the way to the beginning of the story, just kind of before the events of the main manga.
Okay.
Brand New Day, Goblin Slayer, which is just a load of side
it's a new
stories.
day. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Goblin Slayer Gaiden 2 Tsubanari no Daikanata, which is Daikatana of Singing Death. It's a prequel set 10 years before the original series and focusing on the Sword Maidens party, and they journey into the Dungeon of the Dead and kill the Demon Lord.
Oh.
So that's meant to be 9 chapters, but it's based on a light novel. And unfortunately, Square Enix, who were organising for it to be published, have cancelled this adaptation to restart it all over again. And he only got 3 chapters out of 9 in. But I think, considering this was meant to start in December last year, and he's only put out 3 chapters, there might be a bit of an issue about him not putting it out quick enough.
Oh, dear.
Mm-hmm.
So I've probably mentioned this before, but I'm hyped for Mustafa Shakir.
Mm.
So hyped. And this is going to be an excellent production.
Of Cowboy
Can't
Bebop.
wait. Yep.
Yep.
Jojo is going to be awesome too.
Well, I mean, I was excited until the mess up with the recent Neon Genesis dub. That has kind of tempered my expectations. We'll see what happens though, because I mean, there's enough hype around it that they know if they stuff this up, that'll probably be the last straw for people. I suspect.
They know the stakes at this point.
Yeah, so hopefully Netflix, if you somehow listen to this podcast, what a ha. Don't stuff this up, please.
Netflix, if you are listening to this podcast, give us some money to make a show.
Yeah, we can make a really good one.
Yeah,
Probably be
we'll
about,
produce it.
I don't know, what, potatoes who battle ancient cabbages?
Yeah.
That sounds as good an idea as any for an anime.
I think
We
you've
can
got
get
cooking on
Eddie
the brain.
Izzard. Just saying.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I'm in here and I'm arranging matches. It's a very difficult
Yes.
task. What do you want, Sebastian?
No,
Anyway.
it's Mrs. Bad Crumble.
Oh,
Anyway.
Mrs. Bad Crumble.
So-
There's also Hello World, which we've got a lot of films coming out in the next month,
Yeah.
actually.
I know, it's great,
It's
right?
great. So Hello World, we posted the trailer for this sci-fi romance on the Facebook this morning. And it's really good. So it's a sci-fi time travel romance story where the main character's future self from 10 years in the future comes back in time to help save a girl he's going to fall in love with in 3 months' time.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all I know plot-wise. And that sounds really cool. But visually, it looks pretty good.
Made by the same people who made Sword Art, yes?
Yes, I believe it's the same director. It's his first major project since Ordinal Scale.
Oh, yeah, that's the title. I was trying to think of that for a second.
They come up with such cool sounding titles, and I don't know what any of them mean sometimes. They are cool though.
They are cool, but I mean, like you have a look at like Food Wars and stuff like, which I've actually been reading recently.
Yeah.
But and now we've got a Shield Hero.
Oh, so
the
what
Shield
I
Hero
want to
cooking manga, yes.
what I'm envisioning is he's going to make a fire and he's going to use certain kinds of shields to cook food on, and he's like maybe
I
you'll
now
get like
have
a roasting
wok shield.
Yeah, a wok shield, a roasting shield, or maybe like a shield with a spit that turns something. Like I'm expecting this.
He's roasting balloon animals on it or something.
Like, what are you cooking up tonight? Revenge, served cold.
You know what? That's something that the guy from Arifureta could probably make use of.
Yeah. He needs
Seems
a
like he needs
mighty
to
shield,
cook,
like
yeah.
Captain America, throwing that shield.
Yeah, he needs to cook what he eats.
And Weathering with You, which we didn't mention in the news, but we are going to talk about because it's the director is who we're talking about today. It's now earned 10 billion yen so far at the box office, and it's now in the top 10 Japanese films of all time.
So how much was the budget? Do we know?
Oh, I don't have it offhand, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
But it's the first Japanese film since Your Name to reach the 10 billion yen mark. And that was the first film to do it since, well, pretty much anything by Miyazaki.
Oh,
wow. No other film other than Miyazaki hit the 10 million yen in anime. So that's pretty
Far
crazy.
out.
But international releases have been decided for North America, Europe, Asia, and South America. So keep an eye on your local distributors. You'll be able to catch Weathering with You soon. The English dub is on the way by G Kids, and that's expected early next year as well. They've done a lot of dubs for his previous work. So that'll be
Good.
Anyway, we should actually talk about the man in question.
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
And now for our feature presentation.
Now featuring.
And he's completely right. She's completely right. He is Sugoi. His name is Makoto Shinkai.
Why, Coco?
He was
Sugoi.
Yes, totally Sugoi. Born 1973 in Nagano.
Wow.
As Nitsu Makoto instead of Shinkai Makoto. I believe this is maybe a change of name that's happened.
That may be
to
like an
stage.
artist name.
Yeah,
Similar to
perhaps.
how like actors in the UK can't have the
Yeah.
same name as a prior actor.
Yeah. So he was first exposed to anime and manga in middle school, but he went on to study Japanese literature at Chuo University, which is one of the most prestigious in the country.
I actually found a little bit of detail about that,
Yeah?
that he was creating picture books in the Juvenile Literature Club while he was there.
Yes,
Wow.
that is part of where he's like that. That's
So
where he sort of started. his
This is
illustrating.
like doing kids' books, like animations from there.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
sorry, animations, drawings, and stuff from there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, drawings and kids' books. It's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting transition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool, hey. And after graduating, he started working for a company called Falcom. They do
Falcon Punch.
Not so
They-
far off the mark. They're
they-
a video game company that does a lot of JRPG stuff.
Yes, exactly. And he was doing cutscene direction to start with, and then he says in one of his quotes he was like general product management.
General product.
So he would oversee a lot of the
random
project.
stuff.
Like he would maybe shape the way it was advertised.
Okay.
He'd do a lot of
he's-
extra bits and pieces.
He has
Interesting
done a
job.
lot of weird things. When I was looking up his details the other night, I discovered he's credited as doing like 4 adverts. Like one's for like a tunnel, one's
Yeah.
for like a highway. I'm just like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, he has.
I mean, you can almost actually see that because, like, look at how in all of his movies he captures landscapes, like the sweeping shots of cities and roads and stuff like that. You could almost actually see that as like a perfect job for him.
I'm just
Yeah.
imagining him drawing like an anime of someone driving along in the rain. It's bucketing down, and they enter the tunnel, and it goes, the new Shinkai tunnel.
You know what?
I
It's
can picture
interesting
that.
how he hasn't approached becoming a an anime director the traditional kind of way.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't done it the same way as everyone else. He was still working at Falcom when he conceptualized and created She and Her Cat, which was his first release.
That is such a heartwarming
Yeah.
little thing.
It is. He met the composer of many of his films at Falcom as well because they used to work together.
This is like a partnership between Joe Hisashi and Hayao Miyazaki.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Though they didn't work together for Your Name.
No.
Yeah. So it was about 1997 that he came up with the idea for She and Her Cat. He drew and animated this short film with the help of only 3 other people, and released it in '98. And
It's all black and white and hand drawn.
yeah, he was working on an RPG at the time, and that served as inspiration for the backgrounds because he was doing a lot like. This is one of the things he's known for: richly detailed backgrounds.
Richly
And
detailed
they are
everything.
stunning. And what you mentioned before about the rain, it's interesting because that's one of the things I really noticed in She and Her Cat. There's one scene where you see the rain falling on the balcony of the apartment where she lives, and it's just
It's incredible.
beautiful.
He's got a real eye for like nature and weather and light.
Well,
you see
Yeah.
it so often. in his work.
Similarly, in a few scenes before that, like there's meant to be like a field of like tall grass, and it's you imagine it's black and white drawing, and you can see the wind moving across it, and you're like, how? I mean, I realize how you've done it with just straight lines, but just conceptualizing that from a manga point of view to then turn that into video.
Yeah.
Oh no, because he was using like After Effects and a bunch of other tech that he
Yep.
was using in the studio. And it was black and white because he had brought this stuff home and was using it to just make his own things on his tiny little Apple computer from like a few generations past. I forget what the model is, but
Oh, it's
basically
the G4, which is like 30 years old now.
30-year-old computer. He had to do it in black and white because it was just so compressed.
But it's so beautiful in black and white.
It's fantastic.
And he says that he made the film because he wanted his girlfriend at the time. She was having some problems and had quit her work. He wanted her to feel better about herself and her life after
Aw.
watching it. Yeah, and he says, which comes into play later. He said that his own time living in a small apartment surrounded by electrical lines inspired the main scenario. And although these are ugly things, he wanted to make it look detailed and beautiful to express that it's okay to live in this situation. Things can be beautiful, you just have to look for it. He completed this in 1999 and he distributed it at Comiket and via mail on his website. He sold around 5,000 copies.
Wow.
And
or on like, I don't know, CDs or
yeah, CDR. He chucked it all onto a CDR.
Not even like professionally produced. He's just sat there and went and put it burning in the computer.
You know what? I reckon they are worth bank these days, unless he's still selling them. And I don't think he's still selling them in that format.
Go to the premiere of Weather With You. Do you want to buy my CD?
Yeah, just set up a little like desk in the. Yep. So it was directly due to this film that he got his next job with Comics Wave Films, because they actually emailed him and they went into a detailed long email about how awesome they thought it was and all these different reasons why it worked.
I believe they actually discovered him because of him winning a grand prize at the Doga CG Animation Awards.
Yes.
That was in 2000.
Yeah, which is, it's quite impressive to see how, something like this, which was kind of done in his spare time, could take home an award when competing with other people doing it professionally.
Absolutely.
And not just an award, a grand prize. And this was just something he just did with his own two hands.
And the story to She and Her Cat is basically a year spent looking at her life. She's unnamed. She's human. She's a young girl who, maybe mid-20s, living by herself in a small apartment, and her life is observed by her cat.
Yeah, it's narrated by the cat, isn't it? Which he voiced, I think.
Yes, he
which
voiced
is
the cat.
adorable. This She and Her Cat actually did get a re-release in 2016 called She and Her Cat Everything Flows, and it was a 4-episode miniseries, and it's literally like watching a Makoto Shinkai film as a series, which is phenomenal.
So it's filled with that beautiful warm light and rich detail.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's quite funny actually, because you notice how he's only done films, really?
Yeah.
Or something which could be, just popped together into a film. There's a quote I found from him. He's like saying he's been offered the chance sometimes to work on an anime series. Now, I'd like you to keep in mind that this guy's been doing this since the 90s. So this is, approaching, it's 20 years this year, since 99. And it is something I feel I should try and be a part of, but at the moment, I do not feel like I'm ready for it yet and haven't done enough work.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry, what?
I think he should just keep doing what he's doing.
He's interested in doing an anime series one day, he says, but he doesn't feel like he's got enough experience.
I feel like it'll be
Holy
like
cow.
maybe, or like it'll be a series of short films. Just
See, that's the thing. You watch like Your Name and Voice of a Distant Star. There are like aspects of it which he includes, which
very anime style cues.
Very, very much like a series. Like he's got a whole opening sequence in one of them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so you really, it's this. You seem to want to do a series, but you also say you're, nervous about it.
Actually, also going back to Weathering With You, I found a really interesting quote because he's had cats his entire life.
Oh,
really?
So ever since he was a child, I've always had a cat with me. In Nagano Prefecture, there are a lot of stray cats, and when he came to Tokyo, he picked up some strays and started raising them. So I've always had a cat with me.
Like a friend of mine who lives in Japan recently got a second cat because she found this cat as a stray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this just
so
what's
cute.
done in Japan? I love it.
Find cats.
Yeah.
I like it. Might have to move to Japan, get a tiny apartment, and find a cat.
It'll be a character building experience, that's for sure.
Something also about Makoto is that he has utilized that traditional Japanese literature degree as well, because 3 of his films have been adapted into books by himself. He started off with 5 centimeters a second, which he then did a couple of years after the film. But since then, The Garden of Words and Your Name, both of them actually had novels out before the film came out. While he was writing the script, he wrote it into a novel at the same time, which is really cool. 6 of his films have been made into manga as well.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's just clearly like there is an appetite for it. Yeah.
I'll have to find it all.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of an interesting jump for him. Like, he studied literature at this university, and then he jumped immediately into video games and producing manga and animes.
Yeah.
kind of an interesting
Yeah,
jump.
and interestingly enough, when he was doing She and Her Cat, one of the ways that he used to draw the backgrounds was he'd take photos and then draw over them in Photoshop, I believe.
That checks out.
That explains why his drawings are so detailed.
Yeah, and he does that in his next film, Voices of a Distant Star. He did that extensively.
Which is what we will get to in a moment. But I would like to end on one note before we do go on, and that is that he's been compared, Makoto, to Hayao Miyazaki as in his influence on the anime industry. A lot. I mean, I think this is more coming from Western press than Japanese press.
Yeah.
Saying that he's the next Miyazaki. I wouldn't say he is the next Miyazaki, but he's the next iconic.
He himself
creator.
Has spoken a lot about not so much the dislike, but he doesn't feel that it is accurate to be called the next Miyazaki.
Yeah, an overestimation, I think he said.
I have a few quotes from him. One of the best ones is, it's a big ideal, and that's Hayao Miyazaki. He's someone you look up to and are influenced by. He's got his own totally original style. He's a genius, but you can't be Miyazaki. You can only be the second Miyazaki, and I don't think that's something to aim for.
And he said that if there was one film that he could watch for the rest of his life, it would be Laputa.
Yeah, that was
Castle in the Sky.
That was the first one he actually saw with his own pocket money in school. That's what he says in another quote.
That's so
and
sweet.
it was something that influenced him heavily.
Also, on the note of favourites, his favourite anime is Toradora. Now, I think you both might have seen a clip of this. The girl holding the tiny tiger in her palm.
Yes. What?
Yeah, I think I have.
So he says that the Garden of Words, and Toradora's from 2008, so the Garden of Words actually influenced the way he wrote his characters and how they express their emotions in the film. Toradora influenced the Garden of Words, more correctly. And because of that, he just really loves the style of the manga artist and the team who were behind it. So he's just like, oh wow, okay, cool. That's really impressive.
What I really love about what he tries to portray in all of his works that I've seen so far is that beauty is everywhere. Everything can be beautiful. You just have to look. And it's if you feel like your eyes are hungry, just watch one of his films and you'll start seeing it come out. You'll see extra colors come through on your walk down the street. Maybe you'll see an old car that you'd normally just look at and go, oh, that's a bit needs fixing up, but you'd be like, no, it's perfect.
If the light catches it at a certain angle, it can be beautiful.
Yes.
It's just making me think of that quote in Westworld, and it's like, I like to see the beauty in every day. The disarray.
Oh, yeah. There's beauty in the squalor.
Well, we should move on to talk about his first film, and that's Voices of a Distant Star.
Kawaii-Fi.
We'll be there on time. There's 20 minutes of ads.
Cinema Club.
Not exactly 20 minutes of ads for this one.
Well, if you had 20 minutes of ads, you'd be spending the same amount of time watching the film.
Exactly. I wasn't expecting this. I had watched this ages ago when I first moved up to the city, and I thought I'd only caught the first half of it, but no, this is a 25-minute anime movie.
What's the premise? What do you think the main premise is of this?
What do I think the main premise is? This is set in a futuristic Japan. Aliens have been discovered on Mars, and a young man and his high school sweetheart are talking, sharing a life together, but she has been drafted into the military. And this is a space military where they go into space with giant robots. It's very, very, very Japan, very anime-ish.
Very Japan.
So
there are mecha in this.
She
is
is
cool.
a high school girl in a mech. I don't know why they keep hiring people like this for fighting in mech warriors. It's a thing that is...
It's a very Japanese thing. One thing I did notice, because I went and watched it, I hadn't actually seen it until recently, and I was like, I put 2 hours aside and wait, 25 minutes?
Yeah. That's the thing though, it's for its size, it compresses so much story and so much emotion. Because it's not just the fact that she's gone to space to save the world and stuff. She's leaving her boyfriend behind. And because of the whole physics of traveling in space at light speed and stuff like that, he ages naturally on Earth. she hasn't really aged much.
Well, no, that's not what it is.
Oh?
It is the time delay of sending the message.
Oh, yeah?
No, but
Yeah.
he does age.
Yeah.
faster
But
than her.
no. So she sends a message and it's taking 8 years to get to him. So he's receiving it 8 years later. So of course he's 8 years older.
I see.
It's not to do with relativity.
I completely thought it was a relativity
No.
thing. I was so
I thought that
wrong.
was actually the case because a lot of people are on this train and think that it like there is a rumor that it was one of the main inspirations for a recent movie, Interstellar. It's a baseless speculation based on mostly just a similar subject matter of like the differential age.
There is a similarity because the age difference, but then it literally says in plain text on the screen, this will take 8 years to get to its destination.
But there's also the fact that she isn't aging.
Well, yeah, because it's for what we're seeing of her, we're seeing her in a linear timeline of going from, 1 week she's here, they then jump to warp and end up 8 light years away. In an instant, not over 8 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is her story, and we're seeing his story relating to when she sends the messages.
Right.
So we're seeing her send it at point A, and then they're showing when he receives it as if it's straight away, but showing that he's aged because 8 years have passed, or a year and a half has passed, or 3 months has passed.
Kyle is showing his physics chops right here, right now.
Well, it's not physics; it's a storytelling directive.
Yeah.
But
we just jumped straight ahead, and we
went.
like,
Well, I mean,
Einstein.
Yeah, but it's like you're saying I'm showing the physics chops, and you're the ones who are saying that this is a relativity film.
I thought it was supposed to be.
You jumped straight to the physics.
I thought it was the whole twins paradox thing.
No. So it is. He if you have a look through the film, they never mention relativity. They just mention this will take 8 years to get to him. This will take a year and a half. This will take 6 years.
I thought that was the whole.
I've blown your mind.
I love how wrong we.
So look,
or maybe there's just different ways of looking at this.
Yeah, look, there's different ways of looking at it, but from like a storytelling point of view, like you're seeing the note. So like there's. At the very end of it, there are newspapers on the floor which talk about the events which have clearly been sent, and that's 8 years later on the date on the newspaper.
You know what? People listening to this, if you are like me and Kenny and you thought it was all about relatively, raise those hands.
We
Let
can't
us
actually see you, but
we'll hear that.
If we could see you raising your hands, we'd be very appreciative.
Yeah, because we don't want to feel like the only idiots in the room.
Yeah, well, you're not idiots. It's two different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, that's true.
And admittedly, I do read a lot of sci-fi and time travel stuff, so...
yes.
I don't. Time travel is bad.
Yeah.
Time travel is dangerous.
No, time travel is good. Anyway, back to Voices of a Distant Star.
Basically, long-distance relationships.
Yes.
They suck.
Yes.
They do indeed suck. And Makoto Shinkai was inspired to write this when he was sending text messages to his girlfriend because he was hard at work, directing video game openings and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he was inspired by how this was their sort of means of communication.
Because didn't he like draw a picture of a girl holding a phone in a mecha cockpit or something?
Exactly. This was just like a doodle on the side of the page. And it's actually surprising how many things are done like this. I mean, I believe Avatar The Last Airbender was made from a similar premise. Just a little doodle on the side of the page, and they thought, hey, wait a minute.
I love how he said that it was his love letter to a person that he had in mind, which I think was his girlfriend at the time. It was so sweet. Released in 2002, which is 3 years after She and Her Cat, because directly after She and Her Cat, he was propositioned by Comics Wave and he jumped ship to them, and they are an anime production company. So he was getting a bit more support with this one, but he still did most of the work himself.
That's the thing. According to what I've discovered, he wrote, directed, produced, animated the project all by himself on his old school Power Mac.
Oh yeah, and what did he use?
Adobe Design.
Yeah, it was
and After Effects.
Adobe After Effects 4.1, Commotion 3.1 for everyone who wants to know, Adobe Photoshop 5.0, and he was doing it all on a lovely Power Mac G4 using Lightwave as well.
Wow. So version 3 and version 5. I wonder if those licenses were genuine.
Well,
I mean, if he's working for a production company, I'm sure he was.
I'm
had
taking
the
the
ability.
mickey.
oh, you never know though.
Well, in Japan.
We know there are dodgy businesses out there.
Oh,
but you know what? If they're
I've
getting
heard
art to our screens, I don't care.
Well, on the note of not necessarily art to our screens, but to the side of bus shelters, I've heard of a few horror tales from friends in the drawing and the graphic design business of companies they work to not having genuine versions of Windows or Photoshop or anything.
The stuff is expensive, and we're
It is.
Australian, so
It is. Oh,
we
you
have
do-
a reputation to uphold. They have a
Of being a
reputation to
pirate?
uphold.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's what was it? Australia was rated like #1 for illegal downloads and piracy during,
Especially for Game of Thrones.
especially
yeah.
for Game of Thrones.
Can you guys imagine going to a country where you tell someone that, like, as a kid, you used Napster to download, like, the most recent, like, I don't know, like,
Pop
3
album or
Doors
something,
Down or
yeah.
whatever it was, and then they just react with absolute shock.
And horror and then report you to the police.
Yep, and then you tell them that your parents asked them to ask you to download songs as well.
Oh, I used LimeWire back in the day.
Yeah.
And
You
then-
use LimeWire to download LimeWire
LimeWire
Pro.
Pro, that
yeah.
was the old trick.
So
It
ridiculous.
didn't matter if you gave your computer a horrifying disease.
Was there actually a difference?
Yeah.
I know this is a
there
real
was.
big segue, but
Do you ever wonder if it was just the one guy who had LimeWire Pro and everyone was just leeching it off him?
Yeah, pretty much. That's why they went under.
I
So
wonder who that was.
going back to the topic of Voices of a Different Star,
Apologies.
one thing I did notice is that his art style has really adapted, obviously, over that period. I mean,
It's changed a lot.
It's 17 years. It is it's a long time, and people's style of animation, the way they approach it will change. But one thing that doesn't change is his attention to detail.
Oh, you will notice it in all of the like long shots and landscape shots. There's just a bit where you see like a storm cloud and the lightning crackling through it. It is rough. It is old school, but this was like
There's a magic
practically
to it,
better
isn't
than
there?
everything else that you were seeing on TV at the time. This was
Yeah.
just something by some kid with a computer.
I just
I mean,
feel
there was pretty heavy use of CG as well, actually, and it's not aged well, but
no.
but it has aged better than, let's say, this season's Hydra in Arifureta. Which, if you remember the multicolored dragon head, which
Oh, yes.
You can't
everyone
see me shaking my head, but I am.
it's awful. It looks it's embarrassing.
But yeah, it's just the fact that like a large scale company can like do something like that, and just some guy on a keyboard can make this.
Actually, there is a stop motion film that I'm not going to mention now, but we are going to have to all sit down and watch, which is something that a guy did. I think he's in Tokyo. He did it in his spare time over 3 years, and wow, that's called Junkhead. We will discuss that at a later point.
And one last thing I do want to really mention about this anime is it wasn't that he just made it himself. It was also voiced by himself and his girlfriend at the time.
What?
Yeah, it's there is a later
Proper collab, isn't it?
Oh, totally. It's something he made sort of for her, inspired by her, and then starred her in it. There is another version later on which they got professional voice actors in for. And I believe after that, he also wrote a 10-volume manga to go into more detail.
Yeah, he did. He did.
I found that in a bunch of places. Manga Rock, I think was...
you can actually buy a box set of it by Yen Press, I think, as well. It's,
Really?
It's like, wow, okay, cool.
Something for true fans, obviously.
Well, we've talked about kind of the origin, so let's talk about the most recent big hit that he had, which is your name.
Kawaii-Fi Radio. We'll be there on time. Just 20 minutes of ads.
Cinema Club.
Yes, Your Name, Kimin no Na wa, which was released in 2016, and my lordy, is it a good film.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is just stunning. And it starts off interestingly as well.
It's I've written down my thoughts for it. I just want to...
Oh, yeah. Well,
There's nothing on the page.
yeah.
It-
Have you actually written anything on here?
There are no words.
Oh, God.
We need one
Okay.
of those. We need a.
We do need a dum-dum
Yes.
sound
This
effect.
film made me cry.
The,
It hurt
the,
me.
the nearest thing I've got to that is, Kanpai!
That works.
That worked.
So
I don't-
it was Makoto's 5th feature film, critical and commercial success. If you have a look on Rotten Tomatoes, critic aggregates 97%, audience scores 94. 361 million, and it was the highest grossing Japanese and anime film of all time until this year, when Studio Ghibli decided to finally open Spirited Away in China. Which pretty much doubled its earnings
I'm
overnight.
glad that happened.
Yeah. But
Everyone
it's
should
also
see it.
the first anime film not made by Studio Ghibli or Hayao Miyazaki to gross 10 billion yen at the Japanese box office. So that says a lot about the quality of the production, because these previous films didn't do that well. But admittedly, we did hear a lot about Your Name in the lead up, and I think it obviously got a lot bigger advertising budget because it was a full-length film, and we saw that coming out, around the world. Whereas if you have a look at Garden of Words and so forth, they were kind of niche releases when they were sent out to the international groups. But let's talk about the plot, because Your Name tells the story of a high school girl called Mitsuha Miyamuzi and a high school boy called Taki Tachibana, who suddenly begin to swap bodies. Now, Mitsuha lives in rural Japan in a fictional town called Itomori, and Taki lives in Tokyo. And when they fall asleep, the pair occasionally swap bodies, causing Taki to develop a closer relationship with a female co-worker called Miki. And in Mitsuha's case, her father being the mayor of the town, and she's not very popular in school, and when Taki takes over her body, he inadvertently improves her respect from other students by her masculine attitude. Has girls giving her love letters.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. They are... Well, that's the whole idea, is that they are from completely different worlds. They are quite different people. He is very, very assertive. He gets into fights. He's, a man's man kind of guy. And she is very traditional, very reserved.
And she also has that traditional, I work at a temple and do this, that, and the other.
Yeah, it's the family temple.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the fact that this wasn't spelled out from the beginning. When you start watching... and you're looking, and the character comes on the scene, and they're reacting. You're like, what are they reacting to? This is really strange. What's going on here? And it takes a bit of a while to realize that the swap has happened.
Yeah, because the voice actors stay the same when they swap bodies. So when Taki's Taki goes into Mitsuha's body. That sounds really dodgy. When they body swap, the voice actor swaps with them. So it's the female voice actor putting on a male voice, and it's the male voice actor putting on a female voice.
Oh, God, I had no idea.
At least in the Japanese version. The dub's a little different. But
it's very necessary to watch again for some people to sort of have that in mind.
Oh, well, for this sort of thing, multiple viewings is definitely...
Oh, yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. It's eye food.
It is.
It's real eye food.
So, but one day, the body swapping just stops. And the pair, they've not tried to communicate with each other outside of leaving notes in their phones and on pieces of paper and stuff.
Or on each other sometimes.
Yeah, but they can't get in touch with each other when they try to call. And this is where the core of the story really gets started. Now, we won't give you any, major spoilers on how it goes from here, because this is where kind of all the intricacies of the story happen. I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah,
but
this is basically where things get... This is where the pin drops and you're like, oh, it's that kind of a movie.
Yeah. So as to why they've never tried to call each other, which everyone goes, why haven't they tried to call each other? Think about Japanese culture. You don't talk to someone you don't know. You have, quite a respect for distance and personal space. Can you imagine in that cultural environment calling someone up going, hey, am I swapping bodies with you?
Yeah, is this actually happening? Because you doubt.
You doubt
yourself.
it.
Actually, that was something that came up in Voices of a Distant Star and a bunch of other things, is that phone culture is very different in Japan.
Oh, it is.
It's seen as a more intimate form of communication.
Oh.
It's
as opposed to where we see it as the very casual form.
As a very casual form where we'll leave like little notes for each other on text message or look at cat videos all the time. It's kind of a bigger thing in Japan, and I always kind of marveled at that.
They swap email addresses online, and that's kind of a big thing.
Now, something that this film doesn't get talked about a lot is that there were quite a lot of people who criticized it in Japan.
Really? What for?
Yeah. Really? It's essentially they were saying it just followed all the tropes. Now, it doesn't really. It does take aspects of it, but let's be honest. Have you seen anything original in Hollywood in the last decade?
Honestly.
So, Mobile Suit
stories are
Gundam's
recycled a lot of the
creator, Yoshiyuko Tomino, had serious doubts whether anyone will be watching it in 5 years.
I beg your pardon.
Well, few people rewatch Gundam, so all's fair play, mate.
It's a
Manga
little bit
artist
salty of
Tatsuya
them, isn't it?
Egawa said the film was, from the viewpoint of a professional, not the least bit interesting. His only notable work is Golden Boy and adult videos. I'm sorry, mate, but if you haven't actually developed something which has built cultural context or discussion, you're not likely to have your view respected.
But so you know what both of those opinions have to them that I find is completely missing the point. They're ignoring the emotion that's obviously been put into all of this film, not only the story, but drawing the characters, animating everything that happens in the clouds, in the grass, everything
the story,
is just beautiful, and there's so much.
The story is well done, but it is a well-trodden route that we have seen in other, animes and films.
It's just the way it's been done.
The body swap thing. I think even Australia had a movie, Dating the Enemy.
Yes, and that was excellent.
It was
excellent. Love that film.
But just because something has been done, and it's been done again, doesn't mean you immediately rule it out.
Yeah, it's
no.
There was a quote from someone that said, "Every story has been told, but it hasn't been told in your way."
Yeah,
and I've always appreciated that.
It's something that made me go, well, you have a look, because he was when he was out and about, apparently he was hearing people criticizing the film and all that, and it really colored his opinion on whether or not to do another film, apparently.
As it would.
And it's, Weathering With You, his next film, is all to do with weather. But it's a type of film that not everyone is going to get, because I feel like Your Name does have elements of cultural, narrative, which you'll only really understand if you've watched a few other animes or films. Like understanding that you don't immediately go and confront someone in a public location. Understanding that Japan have these folk tales that connect to this about body swapping and about different aspects of it, the red ribbon of fate and so on.
Which actually plays a fairly heavy part in this entire movie.
But it's done in a quiet way. You don't literally see someone pulling a red string that's attached to their finger for the entire film, which some of the other not so good String of Fate films have done.
Actually,
a lot of criticism actually lands on the end, because it ends in a very Japanese way. It's in a way where it leaves it open for interpretation. It doesn't give you, it gives you a happy ending, but it doesn't give you a massive, here's, this is everything that happens from here. And while from a Western perspective, we're like, I want to see more, it tries to do it in a way that says, just let the story be.
I have to say, I liked the way that the characters behaved and how they interacted.
Yeah.
I felt like they were very relevant. Like I could see myself reacting in those ways in that situation.
Yes, exactly.
And especially, I don't want to say I'm not going to say exactly what this is, because this happens at the end. But what happens at the end on the stairs? That's how I would behave.
Yeah.
I would be like,
Do I do?
Not very
do
sure.
I do anything?
Yeah.
Am I?
What is
losing
this that's happening?
Yeah, exactly. What is the professional way to approach a situation like that? There is none. There is no precedent set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except for in anime.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, onto the awards that this has received, because Your Name did really well. So I'm just going to list a few. There's more than this. There's also nominations on top of this. So Stridge's Film Award, Best Animated Feature-Length Film. The Bucheon International Animation Festival. It won Animated Feature Special Distinction Prize and Animated Feature Audience Prize. New Type Anime Awards, Best Picture, runner-up for Best Soundtrack. Los Angeles Film Critics Association, Best Animated Film. Japan Media Arts Festival, Grand Prize of Animation Division, the Mainichi Film Awards, Best Animated Film, Japan Academy Prize, Excellent Animation of the Year, Screenplay of the Year, and Seiyu Awards, they won the Synergy Award. I don't know what that is.
Synergy is
Business?
an electricity company in Perth.
Yeah,
so
but,
that sounds
yeah,
interesting.
I'm gonna synergize with my
Yes.
business management options. Yes, yeah. So they're one for good business, clearly, yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, that's just a handful. There are actually more, and that's just for the awards for best film. There's also many awards for best screenwriter, best sound composition. It goes on, and
that's what I loved. I loved the sound as well.
well, the sound does come down to a Japanese rock band called what is it?
Radwimps.
Who are wow. I have a lot of time for Radwimps. I have a lot of time for Radwimps.
Oh yeah, just hearing the work that the I believe it's the main singer and frontman of Radwimps composed all the music for this.
He has also done all the music for Weathering with You as well.
Actually, I have something about Radwimps here. They worked very closely with the director on the script and the story to create the complementary music. The process of them actually working together led to some initial script changes.
Yeah, which says a lot. It's like, well, the music's good, but it could be better.
Oh no!
What do you mean?
In
What
this
do you mean?
case,
Well,
it was,
in this scene, I want this to happen instead.
No, it was kind of the reverse. It was, well, the music for this is good, which means the script could be better.
Yeah.
It's a strange way how music can actually influence animation.
Oh, yeah.
It can influence a scene in anything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there is also a connection between Makoto's films, and you and I have discussed this, and I'm dubbing this the Makoto Shinkai Interconnected Universe.
Because
the
everyone
MSIU.
has to have an interconnected universe these days. It's
the
totally him.
teacher who teaches classical Japanese in Mitsua's school, Miss Yuki, is Yukari Yukino, the heroine from his previous film, The Garden of Words.
Oh.
Her partner, Takao Akizuki, makes an appearance near the end of the film in a crowd as well. The restaurant that Taki works at is called The Garden of Words. And there's other bits and pieces which relate to 5 centimeters a second and
I
other
love
stuff
those
as well.
Easter eggs.
Yeah,
Turns out, Weathering with You has the characters from Your Name in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is going
now-
to be like the best game of Where's Wally ever.
Yeah.
I might
so,
cry.
Taki and Mitsuha both appear in the show. I can't say for sure because obviously we haven't seen it. We will be actually watching it on Monday because it's just popped out over in Australia. I'm not sure if they are the exact same characters, but they share a striking resemblance and the same voice actors. So, kind of connects. But look, I mean, this is a type of film that, I mean, you'll either really enjoy it or I feel it'll miss the mark with you. I've got some friends who I put up a post saying that I was rewatching it, and some of them were like, "Oh my god, it's amazing," and then others were like, "Oh, it really fell over in this act," or "Oh, I just didn't feel anything." And it's like, okay, fair enough. I mean, let's be honest. Like,
Nothing's
romance
for
and
everyone.
misconnection stories aren't everyone's cup of tea. I'm a sucker for romance stories. I don't care what anyone thinks. I reckon they're great.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like one of those cult film kind of things, how you either don't get it or it is your life. It is just...
Well, I wouldn't say it's my life.
But it's just, it sucks you in. It does things to you emotionally. Wasn't there also a rumor going around that if you went to see this film with your significant other, you would be married to them?
Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
and I think it was Sora News Network, which is Japan's one of Japan's online English ones. They did a massive thing about all people on Twitter who were saying, "I went and saw Your Name, and now I'm going with a girl I liked, and now I'm going to go see Weathering with You with the same girl because I'm married to her." And it's like, oh.
really
And then
sweet.
you've got all the other ones going, "Yes, I'm going to see Weathering with You with a different girl because the girl I saw Your Name with cheated on me." And it's like, oh, come on. So it's got a bit of a little cult vibe going on there around, you know, the culture around it. I mean, it is definitely a bit of a romantic. It's a romance film at the end of the day, and it's a story of missed connections between two people, and then, you know, not being able to reconnect, and having things put in the way. And
I had a thing about from the director Shinkai himself saying that it's about individual memory, losing memories, and collective memory, forgetting of certain morality or traditions, indeed. And that actually was covered right at the start. I didn't actually make that connection, how the girl's family practice a certain tradition.
which has been forgotten.
It's been forgotten because there was a great fire in their area where all the scrolls and tapestries involved in it were burned. And it's just like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah. There's also a live action adaptation of this in the works in Hollywood.
Oh.
Does it have Mustafa Shakir in it?
No, it does not. However, the Hollywood adaptation is being done by Paramount Pictures and Bad Robot. You might recognize Bad Robot. That is the company owned by...
Whedon?
Yes.
No, wait, I think I have heard of this.
Yeah.
This is with J.J. Abrams at the helm,
Yes.
right?
So
right.
I'm not sure on that, but we'll see. So Toho's involved, but J.J. Abrams isn't directing it. He's just producing.
Okay.
So the Japanese right holders want it to be a Western adaptation, and it will focus on a young Native American woman and a young man from Chicago instead swapping bodies. So it'll be like a full American adaptation. They won't be trying to replicate the story in Japan.
I think you told us about this like
Yeah.
ages ago. Yes, I want to see
It
this.
could be handled well.
Look,
I
it
want
could,
to
it could be handled well.
Because honestly, like I haven't seen a whole heap of films come out of America that have been like big films that haven't had a principally white or maybe even people of color cast. And
Yeah.
where are the native the indigenous Americans?
Yeah.
You know.
No.
Yeah, I believe the last film I saw like that was White Fang.
I saw actually.
Well, they did it in Westworld, but obviously that's a series.
Yeah, they did.
So-
Before that, I remember Free Willy, but
wow.
Oh, I don't really feel. I still feel like Free Willy was full of white people.
Well, black and white people. It was a whale. It was black and white.
Okay,
Sorry, that
and
was
with
bad.
that utter disappointment, it's time to end. Anyway.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, if you could see the way I made these two cringe.
Anyway, I think it is time we wrap up because we are running out of time today.
9つ話がある
Kawaii-Fi Radio.
Well, that was our look back at Makoto Shinkai and his work over the past 30 years. It's well, I mean, admittedly 20, but you know, he started early.
yeah,
He got in
did.
there hard.
He did.
Ma- made his name, did his thing.
Absolutely. And we are going to share with you She and Her Cat
Yes.
on our Facebook page.
It's a nice little video. Only goes for about, what, 4 minutes?
Yeah, 4 to 5
Alas, no
minutes.
subtitles, but I believe there's a fan dub going around. Whether or not it's accurate remains to be seen.
Yeah,
We'll check it
give
out.
it a
We'll
watch.
check it out and let you know. We'll be checking out Weathering with You next week. Actually, tomorrow, as
Yes.
Aussie cinemas are showing it all this week. We'll let you know what we think on our Facebook. I'm sure you'll see some happy snaps from us.
Yep.
Next episode, Isekai.
Sorry, what's that? I don't think I know what that is.
It's a very niche genre.
Yeah.
So
Not
the
many people
Konosuba
would know.
movie comes out in Japan in a week's time. So we'll be looking at the origin of this very uniquely Japanese genre and a few gems from it, of course. We will be looking at Konosuba because any excuse to talk about Konosuba is a good excuse to me.
It's hilarious.
And obviously a few other looks. I think we might have to fit in Spirited Away by Miyazaki in there.
Yes,
It's a
at last.
perfect opportunity for that.
Yes, I think that's a very good call. We will do that.
So don't forget, head over to our Facebook page, stay up to date on anime news and videos. You've been listening to Kawaii-Fi Radio. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode and more of our Kawaii-Fi Quest random introduction. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, watch some anime. Goodbye.
Bye.
Cheerio.